I'm George Pearson, and these are just a few examples from some of the training videos I have here on YouTube. Now, when you're working with the training, following along the training, if you want to get the materials I used in the training, just go to the description down below and click on the link that's at the top of the description, and this will take you to a page where you can download the materials. Please subscribe, click the like button, and of course always share on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever. I really appreciate that. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do this kind of a cutout logo effect in here. This is something you'll often see being done in a program like CorelDRAW or Adobe Illustrator, but we'll do it here inside of Photoshop Elements. It's pretty straightforward, but a little bit tricky. Lots of little things to do in here. We'll be using a lot of selections and some gradients. So let's go ahead and see how this whole thing is done. I'm just going to get rid of that, get that out of the way. There we go. Start off with a new blank file. Default Photoshop Elements size, which is 6x4 and 300 pixels per inch. Choose OK. There we go. Now this whole thing is based upon having a circle. So it's all based upon our basic circle. So grab the ellipse tool. Foreground color is black. That's the default. And go up here someplace, hold the shift key down, and that will give you a perfect circle. So just kind of drag like that. And then I'll just put that right there. You can adjust the size if you want to at this point. Okay, this will be the basic for making our selection, and it'll also be the starting point for the actual circle. So I'll leave that as is. Copy this layer, drag it up to the new layer button, gives you a new layer. On your copied layer, right click and simplify that layer, making it a gradient. Let's now hide our background circle. There we go. So this is our basic shape. I'll just leave that alone. This is going to be our first sphere. Let's call that one sphere. Now we're actually going to be changing the name on this thing as I'm cutting slices out of that, but this is our starting point, so that's our sphere. Now I want to put a gradient on this. Now you could do gradients as a fill layer gradient, but that applies the gradient onto whatever's on that layer. I want to put the gradient on first and then slice that up without changing my gradient. So we'll be putting the gradient right onto the sphere itself. Hold the Control key down, click on your icon. That selects just that shape. Let's now go over here to our colors. Click on the foreground color and come down here right about in the middle of your light blues. And then choose a blue at the top center of the page. The exact number doesn't matter. Just kind of in the middle here and top center right there. That's our foreground color. Now click on your background color. That's the in behind one there. Come into the middle range of your blues in here someplace. So there's our blues in the middle of the blues, and then come in here down about 3/5, 2/3 down here someplace. Like that. And that's the dark side. I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit. I think it's a bit too dark. I'm going to come halfway on that one. There we go. A little bit better. Okay, so our foreground and our background color. Now, on these, if you want to tone down the brightness or the saturation of your color, just move it in a little bit. So I'm pulling this one in just a little bit on that. I don't want it too saturated in here, so just a bit in from that side. Okay, that looks fine. And let's pull this window up a bit. There we go. Click on your gradient tool and click on the gradient and make sure on the first side here that's foreground to background color. Right there, foreground to background. And choose OK. Choose the radial gradient. And make sure that's not selected, so it's foreground to background. And in here, click up here, upper left-hand corner, kind of, and then come down to the bottom right edge, just like that. And then because it's kind of a nice, soft gradient. If you want a bit darker down here, you either can make your background color a darker blue, or don't go quite as far. It'll be a little bit darker down there. But I want it a little bit lighter, about like that. That's pretty good. So I'm not quite to the edge down here, or not quite to the edge up there. Just kind of a soft gradient giving me that spherical shape. If I deselect that, you can see it's even more looking like just kind of a soft marble effect. Now we're going to be slicing some pieces out of this. Go back to your original layer back here, hold the Control key down, click on that shape. That will be our selection shape. Now click on the rectangular marquee over here. I'm going to use my arrow keys. You can be tapping those there. Arrow keys on the keyboard, and I'm going to move that down a bit, kind of like that. So I have my selection down here, and I'm still in that layer. I'm now going to cut out this piece and make a new layer out of this piece. So that's Layer, New, Via Cut. That leaves me with a crescent here. So this is my top crescent. So that's my top, or you could say the left crescent, be fine as well. So there we go, left crescent. Okay, our next piece is going to be right in here, and this is going to be the left edge. So come back here to this shape, hold your Control key down, click on your background circle. That gives me that selection again. Make sure you're on your rectangular marquee, and then using the keyboard arrows, come down and just kind of move that selection around. And that's going to be the edge of that piece. So this is the top surface, that's going to be the edge surface. We're now going to cut this piece off. So again, Layer, New, Via Cut. Now 3 pieces. So the next one up here, this is the left edge. Double click, left edge. Now to really see that edge, I'm going to reverse the gradient on that. Hold the Control key down, click on that, that selects that piece. Go back here to our gradients. Let's change this to the linear gradient, and I'll pull from the top to the bottom, just kind of like that, and there's that edge in there. Okay, we can now just deselect that. So there's our first piece, there's our edge. Now I want to have a little thin piece in here which we're just going to be getting rid of. So back to our top layer, click on the top layer, then hold the Control key down, click on your bottom shape, that gives us our circle again, back to the rectangular marquee, and then using the keyboard's arrows, let's just bring that down, and it was a little bit of a sliver right in here. That's going to be a see-through cutout. But the exact same trick, we're going to make a new layer out of this piece here. So Layer, New, Via Cut. There we are. This one is our opening one, our first opening. So hide that, and there we go. If I hide our black circle back there, there we go. That's our first opening. Okay, exact same thing again. Back up here, we're now going to cut out our second top piece out of this. Control key, click on the icon down here for your circle. That gives me our selection. We're on the top layer. Use the keyboard to move that selection. And again, this one is going to be our middle crescent. So in here someplace, kind of like that. Same thing, I'm going to take this and make this into a new layer. Layer, New, Via Cut. There we go, there's our new layer. So this one now, that's that piece. This is middle crescent. There we go. We now need the middle edge. Same thing. Back up here to our top layer again. Hold the Control key down, click on our original circle. Use the cursor keys. Make sure you're still on that rectangular marquee. There we go. Cursor keys on the keyboard. And let's move this down. Now, if you can't really see where that edge is, just hide that shape for a minute. So just outside, that's the part we're going to be looking at for our edge in here. So somewhere kind of like that is fine. That's going to be that edge. Okay, let's show that again. Same thing, I'm going to make this, cut this into a new layer. So Layer, New, Via Cut. There we go. this is going to become our middle edge. Now hold the Control key down, click on that. That selects that bit. I'm now just going to, so we can see this, let's put a gradient on here. Same thing, go back to our gradient tool. Everything should be fine at this point. And just pull a gradient right across there like that. That just kind of shows that. We'll adjust those gradients in a little bit. This is just so we can see what's going on. And then deselect. Last thing we need to do is to cut a larger opening in here. So back to this layer, Control key, click on our background shape, gives us the circle. Make sure you're on the rectangular marquee. Move the selection over and down. And this is going to be our final cutout. I'll make this one a bit wider and bring it up a little bit like that. So this piece will be cut out right here. But exact same thing. Layer, new, via cut. And that's that piece. So this piece here, that's that one right there. This becomes opening 2. There we go. And you can hide that one. So there's our basic layout. Let's now put our sphere inside here. And then we'll come back and adjust these gradients as a next step. So on that sphere inside, I'm going to make a copy of the shape. Click on your shape, drag it up here to the new layer button. There's our copy. Show that one. Let's switch over here to the Move tool, giving us our control handles. You can now grab your corner and let's pull this in a little bit here. And just kind of resize that so it's nicely in the middle section there. Choose OK. There we go. Now, we're not cutting anything out of this one, so I can use a controlled gradient on this by putting that in with a new layer above this. Let's see how that's done. So layer, fill layer, and gradient. Click on Use Previous Layer to create clipping mask. Choose OK. And there's our gradient inside of that shape. Now click on your gradient. Click on your foreground to background right there. Choose OK. Set your style to radial, like we had before. So we have our radial gradient and solid background foreground. Let's now change our colors on this. Left side color, click on that one. Let's set this one to a bright yellow right in the middle. And at the top right corner, choose OK. And right side, click on that one. Click on color. Let's go clear to the top up here and come in there with a red. That gives us kind of a yellow to orange gradient. Choose OK. Now while this dialog box is showing, you can actually grab this and move that center part around. So put that up there a little bit. And you can come in and play around with this if you want to. I can move my yellow over, and this is going to increase that yellow area. Or if I move the red over, you can see that, there we go. If I pull that over, I can pull more of the red into the picture. Kind of like that. So you can adjust the positions of these to get just the effect that you want in there. That's pretty good. I'll move it over just a little bit. There we go. Okay, that takes care of our inner sphere. Now there's a few more things I wanted to do. I want to increase this gradient effect. I want it actually darker down below here than the outer gradient. So let's go to our left edge. That's that one right there. Now because I'm done with my cutting, I can again use a layer above this, an adjustment layer, or a fill layer rather. Control key, click on that layer, that selects that layer, new fill layer, gradient. Use previous layer as clipping mask, choose OK. Click in here, foreground, background color. Now notice how it's light down here and dark up there. You may like that look, but I want that reversed. They're different effects. This looks more curvy this way, but not quite as realistic. It's up to you. You can go either way you want to on that. Choose OK. If you want to reverse that, just click on reverse, and it just reverses that. Now what I want the light side is good, I want it darker down here. So I reverse that. So there's what I got. There's the reverse. We're going with linear this time. Click on the gradient again. And I want it darker down here on the dark side. So here's our dark tab. Click on that stop. Pull that stop over a bit, kind of like that. And then, as you can see this, there we are. Click down here. It gives you a new stop. On this stop, click in color and pull that clear to the bottom. And choose OK. That gives us a darker spot right down in there. And then click OK. So that darkens down that spot. And OK. That's all locked in on this. That allows us to go back and adjust it if you want to. OK. Same exact thing for the middle edge right here. That's that piece there. So again, Control key. Click on the icon. Layer. New fill layer. Gradient. Clipping mask. And click on the gradient here, click on foreground background, choose OK, reverse that just like that, click on the gradient again, pull the left side in a bit, click on color, actually not quite yet, click down here first, give you a new color stop, click on color and pull that to the bottom and OK. That gives us our dark edge down there. Okay, there's the basic shape on that. That's what I want. Now the next thing is a little bit tricky, and that's giving a drop shadow on the sphere in here. I'm going to actually create that drop shadow. So come back to your original shape, hold the Control key down, click on that. So we're on this inner shape right there, our inner sphere. I can actually rename that. Just right click and inner sphere. There we go. So we have that. Now I want to move the selection over, so change over here to the rectangular marquee tool. Again, using the cursor keys, those are the arrow keys on the keyboard. I'm going to move the selection over a bit. Now I want it just not quite touching right there. And everything else will just fall where it wants. I want this to be about the same size as that and not quite touching up here. There we go. Now the shadow has to be out here, not in here. So we need to revert or invert this. And we'll be putting this onto its own layer. So we'll do that first. Now don't forget that these two layers are working together as a team in here. I'm going to hold the Control key down. Let's click on that one and just click on the link those together. There we go. So they're a team. So click on the top one of those, the gradient layer, and the new layer. That gives you a new layer above the gradient. That's very important. Put it above the gradient because the shadow has to be on the gradient. Okay, now we're going to invert this selection. So select inverse. So the outside is now selected. That's that part in there. And then go back over here to your color. Click on your default colors. Black as foreground. Paint bucket and fill that with black. Don't worry, it looks weird, but that's correct. Okay, now I can deselect that. And that's going to be our shadow right in here. Now I need to have just the shadow shown on the circle. So come back down here, hold the Control key down, click on your inner sphere shape. There we go. We're still on our layer 7 up here. That's our big shadow layer. Now click the layer mask button, and that limits that to just that sphere shape. Now it's black. I don't want it black. So let's go over here, click on the right hand side, double click actually to select your right hand side, and then bring the opacity down to 25%. And that gives us that nice shadowing effect. Now it's shadowed in here too. I don't want to have that shadowed. That's caused by the layer mask. Click on the layer mask side. You should see that light blue outline. Grab the paintbrush. You should still have black. And then just paint over that on the layer mask, and that shows that bit again. There we go. Okay, so there's our basic sphere. Now again, the gradient on the main sphere, you can't do anything about that after you've made your original sphere because we're cutting them into little slices. But if you want to, you can change the gradient on these pieces using these layers. So you have some additional options on that, and of course on our inner sphere you can change that gradient if you need to. Okay, now I want a drop shadow on this. I'm going to first select all of these layers. Click on your top layer, scroll down, click on the inner sphere. Ignore those layers. And I'm going to resize this. Just grab out here, and you can, your control handles, you can pull that in a little bit. Now notice that this gradient moved as I did that. I'll need to make an adjustment on that gradient. Just choose OK. And actually, there we go. Kind of fell back in place again. That's fine. So that works out. That's a little bit off on that one. So let's come back to this gradient. I'm going to unlock that temporarily. Make sure I'm on the gradient side. Double click on that, brings that back up again. And now I can just kind of move that around, reposition that gradient where I want it. Like that. Looks pretty good. Right in there somewhere. And choose OK, a little adjustment on that. And then I'll just relink those together. OK, now that we have that, we'll do a drop shadow. And the drop shadow should be about the same width as your sphere. So grab a guideline from the left side and pull it into about, like right against the edge of the sphere. It doesn't have to be exact. Make sure we have black down there. Grab the ellipse tool. It should be black in here as well. And starting from this side, pull it straight across to that side and make just a little thin ellipse. Kind of like that. It's just black. Okay, we can now get rid of these guidelines. Just pull them off the page like that. There's our shape right down there. Now I need to change the shape into a standard layer, so let's right click and simplify. There we go. And this is the shadow. Let me just change the name there. Shadow. We're now going to blur this out. So filter and blur, Gaussian blur. And there it is with no blur. Just pull it over slowly until that softens up. You get a nice soft edge on that. Like right about there, looks pretty good. Choose OK. And then bring your opacity down a little bit so it's just a nice kind of soft shadow underneath. If you want to change the size of that, you can do that just by pulling these out to adjust your size. So you have that ability as well. There's our shadow. Last thing we have left to do is just to put some text in here on this. This is where your company name would be if you're doing a logo, or your channel name, whatever. I'm on the background layer. That's fine. Let's set our color in here. I'm just going to choose my light blue color again. Somewhere around there is fine. Or once this is up, you can come in here with the little eyedropper tool and actually grab that blue right from there and choose OK. Foreground color. Let's go to our background color. Again, there's our eyedropper tool. I'll just choose one of our dark spots in there. So there's our dark color. So that just reset my foreground background colors to the blues we had up in here. Let's now go to the text tool. I'm using Gil Sans Ultra Bold Regular, and I found 18 point is pretty good for this size page. So I'll just click in here someplace and do floating cutout logo. Again, this would be the name of your company if you're doing a company name on this, or the name of your channel, whatever it is you want to have on that. Now I want to have my gradient in here. I want it light in the middle and dark on the outer edges. So to do that, I need to simplify this layer. Now, so that I can come back to this if I have to and change this, I'm going to make a copy of this text layer. So drag it up here to the new layer button like that. Hide the original. And on this one, right click and simplify. Hold the control key down, click on that layer, and then we can put our gradient in here. Now to give you more control on your gradient, do your gradient as an adjustment layer. So it'd be layer, fill layer rather, and gradient. There we go. Previous layer is mask. Choose OK. Click in here, foreground, background, color, like that. Change this to radial. There it is. There's our radial. Now you can scale this like that by pulling this over to give it a scale. There you go. I'll put clear to the right hand side. And you can do even more of that if you want to by clicking on your gradient, and then while that's still there, we can adjust the gradient, and you can kind of see it down there. Which I'm going to do something else. Let's just cancel that for a second. I'm going to pull this page down like that. There we go. So we'll be able to see this better. Okay, layer, new fill layer, gradient, and choose OK. Click on the gradient tool right here. Foreground, background, color. Choose OK. Radio, or even, let's do reflected. There we go. It's even better. And let's change this around to 180 degrees. Even better. That just pulls it out further for us there. Makes it a bit easier to use that. So there's our basic gradient in our text. Again, I used the reflected one. What the reflected does is it takes the foreground in the middle and it goes to the background on both sides, left and right. Choose OK. Last thing, back here to our layer. And the reason why I did this as an adjustment layer, as a fill layer rather, is I can go back and I can change that if I want to. Double click on the icon, brings that back up, and I can change all of those settings if I want to. Okay, back to our text. Do a little drop shadow on this. Layer, layer style, style settings, drop shadow. Now the default is like this. The size is the softness of your shadow. So pull it clear to the left so there's no softness. The distance is that. So pull it out just a little bit, not very far at all. Mine's set at 5. The opacity is how dark it is, or how much you can see through. Choose OK, and there we go. Click on the background layer so it all looks nice and clean. And let's zoom in a little bit and see how it looks if you need to do any final tweaks on this. And it looks good. So just back out one step. So there we go. That's how to make a floating, which is the drop shadow, cutout. There's our cutouts, logo design, and company name. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this